sometimes you have to get up really high, or small you are. I'm going nowhere.
Please welcome Felix Baumgartner. I'm probably, we had 39,000 meters, not kilometers. It's a difference. You would definitely run out of gravity. I would not be here, but still floating in space. Space junk. Every time I watch that video, I'm probably responsible for quite a few of those YouTube views. It's just amazing, really amazing. It's an honor to have you here with us this morning. And I've been talking to a lot of people about what questions they would like to ask you, and it's been pretty unanimous. As I've gone around and asked people want to know, what in the world were you thinking? Well, the big problem is there's not a lot of time to think, because when you're up there at 39,000 meters, it's all about business. We have been practicing for so many years, 5 years on the ground. We did multiple tests. We went to wind tunnels, so I'm getting used to the pressure suit because it's so difficult to fly with a pressure suit because you're stiff. Then we did a lot of test jumps up from 10,000 meters, just getting used to the suit and how to deal with the suit in free fall. Later on, we took the capsule to Beale and San Antonio, Texas, and we were doing a lot of practice tests inside the capsule so we could simulate altitude and pressure for 5 hours. And then we sent the capsule up 2 times, unmanned, test out the systems. Then we put myself into the capsule. We went up to 22 kilometers first, then to 30 kilometers, and then finally up to 39 kilometers. So by the time when I'm standing there at 39 kilometers, everything is pretty much familiar. The only question that's still left is how does it feel and how does it affect the human body if you fly at supersonic speed? Yeah, that's a question you probably wish you had an answer to before you jumped out of the capsule. Yes. Yeah, but nobody can tell me. I was talking to so many scientists, and they created a lot of drama, a lot of different stories, but the reality is nothing really happened. So I'll ask you, how did that feel? There's real physical effects of breaking the sound barrier. What did you feel physically? Well, that's what everybody told me, that there's going to be a lot of different things. It's intense because you have to keep in mind you accelerate. When you step off, within 35 seconds, you accelerate so fast that you reach 1,350 kilometers in 35 seconds, So that's intense. But you do not realize that you break the speed of sound because there is no indication. The suit is not flapping because it's pressurized, there's no noise up there, and there's no reference around you. So the whole time when I was falling, I knew I was fast, but I never was 100% sure that I broke the speed of sound. And when I landed, everybody on the ground, 15 people, including an FBI agent who was also there, told me that they heard the supersonic boom on the ground. And I was not sure if this is right because all the scientists told me that you cannot hear the supersonic boom because it depends on the size of the object that breaks the speed of sound. And as you can see, I'm not super tall, Plus it was behind you. Plus the habits are behind you, When you break the speed of sound, the supersonic boom, you never hear it. Also, all the fighter pilots, they don't hear it. But when I landed on the ground, everybody kept telling me I broke the speed of sound. So I was a little bit more relaxed. Then later on, the FAA guy, Brian Utley, took my data recorder from me. He plugged it in, and then he said, "Hey, congratulations, you broke the speed of sound." Wow, fascinating. Interesting when you hear, because we have it recorded. You know, when you hear your supersonic boom, it's the only existing supersonic boom on the planet created by a human person outside an airplane. So we should make a ringtone.
Would be a good ringtone.
But it's not very loud, you know, so nobody picks up the phone.
So this morning we've been talking about risks and the personal commitment that it takes to get through some of these risks. Talk a little bit about maybe who didn't believe. As you were personally committed to this, who did you have to convince, and what was that like?
Well, pretty much nobody believed when we were saying we're trying to break the speed of sound. Joe Kittinger, who was our consultant, did something similar. It was an Air Force program back in the 60s. And he went up to 101,000 feet or 31 kilometers, and he almost broke the speed of sound. And since that day, 52 years, a lot of people have been trying. All of them failed. Some of these people, they got killed. And it was so difficult because on our proposal how to execute this project, you know, getting a pressure suit was a one-line item on the list. But in reality, when you try to get this suit, you have to talk to David Clark, which is one of the leading suit manufacturers in Boston. And those people, they produce suits for the Air Force, for NASA, and nobody wanted to sell us a suit because they said if we sell a suit to the Air Force, they do an ongoing program, you know. But if we sell it to a private company, we never know what they're going to do. And if I kill myself, everybody blames these guys. So it took us almost a year to get a decent pressure suit. That means we had to get Joe Kittinger on board. Art Thompson, who was our mission director, he was involved in the B-2 stealth program. And with these guys on board, we went back to David Clark, and after a 6-hour hearing, they finally agreed to sell us a suit, you know. And all the time when we've been working on this project, it was so difficult because we needed the Air Force. We needed to have access to their facilities because we had to do a lot of tests. And these people have been observing us all the time because there's an energy manufacturer and a base jumper who's trying to break the speed of sound. So what it means is we step in on their toes, and they don't like that, you know. But later on, when we finally proved that we're doing it the right way because we set up a long ongoing program where safety was our main priority, they finally had the trust, and then they were really pushing us forward and teamed up.
It took a year just to convince the manufacturer to get the suit. Wow. That's amazing. Talk a little bit about, once you did sort of convince folks or people started to believe, what did the team look like? I mean, because you're the one who gets you get the glory, you're the one who has to ultimately take the risk, but there's a lot of people, I'm guessing, around you that had to support this effort for years in the making. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was not easy in the beginning because, of course, you're only as good as your team is. And in the beginning, I've been never working with this team. We selected the finest scientists from all over the place, you know, and we were bringing them together to make sure they work as one unit. Which is not easy because the average age of our team members were 60, 65.
Hang on. Average age of the team was 65?
Yeah.
That sounds like working with IT.
And it's difficult because they're all scientists, you know. But these people are Air Force colonels, you know, big egos, difficult characters. And I'm the youngest one in the team, you know, the base jumper. Not a scientist, not an Air Force colonel, not a fighter jet pilot, you know. So it took me a long time to earn the respect that I deserve because in the beginning nobody believes in you, nobody think you can handle it, you know. That means I had to gain so much knowledge by talking to different people, so listen and learn in order to keep up an honest conversation with these guys. So another year went by, you know, until I had enough knowledge to talk to these people because sometimes going into a meeting with 10, 15 scientists having 5 problems. When I left the meeting, I had 7 problems and no answer. I'm serious. But later on, when I had enough knowledge, you know, at least I could select the right answer, the right option, because I'm the one who paid the ultimate price for it. When I'm up there and something goes wrong, I'm gonna die. That's why I wanted to be involved in every aspect of the project.
I'm guessing you probably walked into these meetings and people probably, at least in the early stages, would just blow you off as a risk junkie.
That's what it was. You know.
What's your answer to people that just say he's just a risk junkie?
Well, you know, if you look at my background as a base jumper, I've been doing a lot of difficult, I always call them high-profile base jumps, you know. So preparation was always key. And that means the preparation process was always more important to me than the jump itself. And my main priority was always staying alive. I wanted to come home to my family at the end of the day, and no matter what it takes, I'm going to prepare myself, and I'm willing to go the extra mile. That's why some of my base jumps that took 6-7 months of preparation. Yeah? And I talked about this to these guys and say, listen, if you look at the small picture, it looks like I'm a risk taker and an adrenaline junkie, but I'm not. And if you look at my preparation part, which was always a big, big task, you know that I'm smart, that's the reason why I'm still alive after 25 years doing extreme sports.
Wow, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think it's very relevant for this audience. I want to go back to it for just a second. But you didn't just go to 39 kilometers and jump. There was a process to get there. Maybe talk a little bit about how you deliberately built up to that.
Well, one of our first requirements from David Clark, the suit manufacturer, was we do not sell a suit if we do not build a pressurized capsule. So the difference between our capsule and Joe Kittinger's capsule back in the 60s, he was sitting in an open gondola. Yeah.
Oh, so it wasn't pressurized?
It was just a platform with a curtain around to protect him from the sun. Yeah, but he had an open gondola. That also means as soon as he reached 63,000 feet, his pressure suit starts pressurizing, which means it's very uncomfortable. So the rest, all the way up, he's sitting there pressurized. We had to build a pressurized capsule. That means it's a redundant system. So now you have protection from the capsule all the way up. My suit is not pressurized. And if you lose protection from the capsule because the window blows up, the suit will pop up within a second. Yeah? So you have double protection. That was one of our first requirements. But it also means when you are at altitude at 39,000 meters and you depressurize the capsule, you lose 50% of your protection, which is mentally hard to deal with, because before I have my capsule, I have my suit, and later on when you depressurize, okay, now everything, my whole life depends on that suit. And then we, as I said, we practiced a lot on the ground. We created a 40-step scenario checklist that you probably heard on TV. Joe Kittinger was reading it for me from the ground up to the capsule to make sure I do everything in the right way, because this is what we developed over all these years, to make sure I'm getting outside the capsule safe and with as less energy as I can have, because as soon as I'm outside, I'm not done. Everything started. You do not want to stand there totally exhausted. You have to keep in mind, I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, do all the medical checks, then I'm getting suited up. I have to breathe for an hour, pure oxygen, because you have a lot of nitrogen bubbles in your blood system, and those nitrogen bubbles that become bigger and bigger the more you go up, because there's a lack of pressure, and they go straight into your joints and create a lot of pain. You cannot do it because you have to abort your mission. That's the reason why you're breathing a lot of oxygen before 100% to get rid of all the nitrogen bubbles. So there's so much involved in doing this, than all the test jumps that we did. We had to do